some big free speech stories here. Major news networks are reportedly sidelining Palestinian analysts and reporters amid the eruption of violence in the Middle East. CBS News streaming reportedly intervened to pull a clip of human rights attorney Nora Erakat, and two Palestinian analysts allegedly had CNN appearances canceled after describing what they plan to say on the Israel-Hamas war. And the backlash doesn't stop there. Model Gigi Hadid posted her take on the Israel-Hamas war online last week, and now she's receiving death threats. Hadid wrote in an Instagram post last week, "I have deep empathy for the heartbreak for the Palestinian struggle and life under occupation. It's a responsibility I hold
People
daily.
who send
I also feel
death
responsibility
threats
to my Jewish friends
are
to
garbage.
make it clear, as
Rubbish.
I have before, while I have hopes and dreams for Palestinians, none of them include the harm of a Jewish person. The terrorizing of innocent people is not in alignment with and does not do any good for the Free Palestine movement."
Hadid also posted a photo this past week that read, "There's nothing Jewish about the Israeli government's treatment of Palestinians. Condemning the Israeli government is not anti-Semitic, and supporting Palestinians is not supporting Hamas." Following that post, Hadid found herself in the crosshairs of the State of Israel's Instagram account, reposting a version of the infographic Hadid shared, but changing the original words, and that account wrote, "There's nothing valiant about Hamas's massacre of Israelis. Condemning Hamas for what it is not anti-Palestine."
Now, since this, the entire Hadid family have reportedly been receiving ominous messages that make them
of Israelis. Condemning Hamas for what it is not anti-Palestine.
Of
Now, since this, the entire Hadid family have reportedly been receiving ominous messages that make
State of Israel is bugging.
Of Israelis condemning Hamas for what it is.
She's not turning a blind eye, bro.
Now, since this, the entire Hadid family have reportedly been receiving ominous messages that make them fear for their lives via email, social media, and their phone numbers that were allegedly leaked.
That's
okay,
terrible.
So what is interesting about the response is that
uncondonable, unlaudable.
Israel's official
doxing.
phone numbers that were allegedly
that's
leaked.
Yeah,
okay,
bro.
so what is interesting about the response is that
that is
Israel's official
indubitably
social
abominable.
media account
Abominable.
is picking fights
Abominable.
with random Palestinian American social media figures, models, people who aren't familiar with
Execrable, odious, to be reviled,
social media
reviled.
figures, models, people who aren't familiar with the Hadid sisters. They came to prominence because they're in the world of these kind of influencers. Their mother was a American social media figure.
You can disagree, but you don't. But death threats, nah, bro. You are going too far when you do that. When you send death threats to people you don't agree with, that is sucker-ish, bro. That is clown-ish, sucker-ish. Facts.
It's the State of Israel's official social media account that is
Wild.
in fights with random Palestinian
Indubitably
American
wild.
social media figures,
Indubitably
models, people who
wild.
aren't familiar with the Hadid sisters. They came to prominence because they're in the world of these kind of influencers. Their mother was a real housewife. Their father is Palestinian. They cavort around with the Kardashians and
I
things
had the
like that.
vaguest idea who this was when you suggested we talk about
Right,
it. I will say that.
Married to a One Direction boy, all of those kinds of things. But they are, I think, some of the more notable Palestinian Americans around. They have always been passionate about Palestine. But as you could see in the initial response that they wrote, they were unequivocal about condemning Hamas.
Yeah, I don't object to the statement whatsoever.
And so
it's fine.
That's what's so odd about the response. Not only that it's like the Israeli state.
It is strange that certain people took umbrage with what Gigi said. They detested what Gigi said. I don't see any detestable statement in that. In that? Yeah, Gigi didn't. I did not see it. That's not. She doesn't hate. She does not hate Israel, bro. she does not despise. I meant to say she doesn't hate Israeli people. She doesn't despise Israeli people. She doesn't like the murder, the slaughter of innocent Palestinian people. That is what she reviles, execrates, abhors. That is what she has hatred for, detestation for, odium for, opprobrium for, opprobrium for. She has opprobrium for the mass slaughter of innocent people who innocent Palestinian people, innocent Israeli people, innocent people. Period. Innocent people. Period. So yeah, I don't get the outrage, the death threats, the doxing, the umbrage. I don't get it, bro.
See, in the initial.
Why are they mad at Gigi for saying what's logical, what's rational, what's rational, sagacious, logical, honest, truthful?
That would be inappropriate.
But then also the state media account seemed to completely see in the initial response that they wrote, they were unequivocal about condemning Hamas.
Yeah, I don't object to the statement whatsoever.
And so
it's fine.
That's what's so odd about the response. Not only that it's like the state, Israeli state.
Yeah, that would be inappropriate.
But then also that the state media account seemed to completely ignore what she had actually said and said.
Wow.
It tried to imply, very strongly implied, that she was in any way endorsing Hamas or indifferent to the tragedy that befell those 1,300 odd Jewish people on October 7th.
Stupidity, bro.
On October 7th.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
the people
it's
who
important.
are
again,
outraged
outraged
by what Gigi said. They
synonymous
embody
with
stupidity.
All Palestinians or all of Palestine, but is a separate terror group among whose victims are the innocent Palestinians in the region. So I don't see any problem with what she said, and I don't know why the Israeli government had to get involved. And I do want to more broadly caution.
It doesn't make sense.
Organizations and entities, and especially governments, but really everyone, as we talked about earlier, this kind of cancel culture stuff. Certainly, we can't violate anybody's First Amendment free speech rights. People have the right to protest. People have the right to say things that you or I might think are idiotic. But they have the right to do it. It's our most cherished and beloved right. We've had Michael Schellenberger on the show a couple times this week to talk about that, to talk about what's going on in other countries where they don't have First Amendment rights. They should. They don't. Their free speech rights are being very blatantly violated in the UK, in Germany,
different
France.
places.
Yeah.
A woman, I think it was in France, said that she was arrested after she, said like some like basic Arabic folk reading to another person. There was that Suella Braverman, is that her name? The UK official who advised that it may not be legal to carry a Palestinian flag, and there were a string of arrests that were on video in the UK after she made that proclamation. France tried to outlaw anything pro-Palestine, and the French weren't having it. You know how the French do. They've been in the streets in throngs, and I don't know how well
radical,
extreme. We're so used to our First Amendment norms, and they're fairly robustly protected. They've been litigated at the Supreme Court so many times, and they're among our kind of less contested. They're among our most clear, I think, broadly established rights. Obviously, there's still a lot of First Amendment cases all the time, but everybody really gets that. Sorry, you just can't arrest someone for burning the American flag. Yeah. And if you try, you're going to get. Eventually, the court's going to say you absolutely can't do that, and there's going to be a massive judgment. So we get that in America. So they don't have that in Europe.
In fact, in France, the French Council of State yesterday rejected an appeal on its ban of pro-Palestine Can you imagine? Many people were putting forward this hypothetical
Bias.
last week when the news was that 3 prominent hosts at MSNBC seemed to be pulled from their hosting responsibilities. Mehdi Hassan, Ali Belcher, and I forget the last person's name. And they were doing a thought experiment. Can you imagine if a station's only 3 Jewish hosts were being pulled from the air?
Yeah, there would be
because of some perception of bias.
outrage,
People would be
bro.
outraged, and rightly so. So
Yeah,
I do think that the Gigi Hadid example is particularly pernicious. One, because it is the state of Israel's own account.
even though I
And two,
don't
because
like
it's reflective of
Mehdi
a
Hassan,
broader
I think he's a wokey, but
investment that Israel has had in
albeit
having a lot
I
of
think he's a
control
wokey,
over messaging about
it is
Israel for years.
garbage to
The AIPAC
remove
PAC
him
is
because
one of the
he's
biggest PACs that exist
in
the
a
United
different
States, the Israel PAC, and you can see from the behavior
yeah,
of a
bro,
number of elected officials how reluctant they are to
because he's
go
on
against it.
on a different side, on a different side,
his entire
on
family, outside
a
his
different
parents, was
side,
wiped out
in a
the
different
Holocaust,
religion.
got targeted by
It's whack to
the behavior of a number of elected officials, how reluctant they are to go against it. Bernie Sanders, who of course is Jewish on account, and two, because I think it's reflective of a broader kind of investment that Israel has had in having a lot of control over messaging about Israel for years. The AIPAC PAC is, if not the biggest, one of the biggest PACs that exists in the United States. That's the Israel PAC, and you can see from the behavior of a number of elected officials how reluctant they are to go against it. Bernie Sanders, who of course is Jewish himself, his entire family, outside of his parents, was wiped out in the Holocaust, got targeted by a large amount of AIPAC money after he won. I think it was the Nevada race.
R.I.P. to the people to the people in his kinfolk that died.
If not the biggest, one of the biggest PACs that exist in the United States. Only 3 Jewish hosts. He was on the other day, or maybe it was when I was talking to him last night on his show. He pointed out, even if you believe that it was okay to ban protests because you think that it's inciting violence and that there's a state interest in doing so, it is very telling that pro-Israel protests are not being banned. Can you imagine? Many people were putting forward this hypothetical last week when the news was that 3 prominent hosts at MSNBC seemed to be pulled from their hosting responsibilities. Mehdi Hassan, Ali Belcher, and I forget the last person's name.
Mehdi Hassan is Muslim, an Indian Muslim,
if a station's only 3
a
Jewish
Muslim
hosts
Indian
were being pulled from the air at this time in this crisis because of some perception of bias? People would be outraged, and rightly so. So I do think that
there needs to be fairness, consistency.
On account, and two, because I think it's reflective of a broader kind of investment that
Mehdi,
Israel has had in having a lot of control over
people,
messaging about Israel for years. The AIPAC PAC is, if not the biggest, one of the biggest PACs that
people like Mehdi should not be removed because they are in a different religion, on a different side. That's whack.
Bernie Sanders, who of course is Jewish himself,
The
his
removal
entire family,
is whack.
his parents, was wiped out in the Holocaust, got
Albeit
targeted by
I disagree with Mehdi Hassan on certain things.
I mean, after he won, I think it was the Nevada race, a disproportionate amount of spending that seemed to pay off. And why? Well, Bernie Sanders had some mild, frankly, in the grand scheme of things, criticism of the oppression of Palestinians. But that has largely been not allowed in the public discourse until now. And I think we're seeing this play out as we head into week 2 of the wake of the tragedy on October 7th.
Yeah, there have been too many in the American context. There have been too many, I think, calls for blacklisting and.
If not the biggest, one of the biggest PACs that exist in the United States. That's the Israel PAC, and you can see from the behavior of a number of elected officials how reluctant they are to go against it. Bernie Sanders, who of course is Jewish himself, his entire family. So I do think that the Gigi Hadid example is particularly pernicious. One, because it is the state of Israel's own account, and two, because I think it's reflective of a broader kind of investment that Israel has had in to go against it. Bernie Sanders, who of course is Jewish himself, his entire family, outside of his parents, was wiped out in the Holocaust, got targeted by a large amount of AIPAC money after he won, I think it was the Nevada race, a disproportionate amount of spending that seemed to pay off. And why? Well, Bernie Sanders had some mild, frankly, in the grand scheme of things, criticism of the oppression of Palestinians. But that has largely been not allowed in the public discourse until now, and I think we're seeing this play out as we head into week 2 of the wake of the tragedy on October 7th.
Yeah, there have been too many in the American context. There have been too many, I think, calls for blacklisting,
permanent blacklisting, permanent.
And, not calls for. Well, I mean, there have been some calls for, but not serious efforts to violate in a very direct way the First Amendment rights. But we believe in a culture of free speech as well. I've criticized efforts to.
Yeah, certain people.
Not calls for. Well, I mean, there have been some calls for, but not.
And I think we're seeing this play out as we head into week 2 of the wake of the tragedy on October 7th.
Yeah, there have been too many.
Like I said before, there should be negative consequences for negative actions, but I don't think permanent, eternal blacklisting is judicious. It's judicious, wise. I see both sides. I see what Vivek saying. I see what Candace Owens is saying. Megan Kelly. Certain people. I see what people from both sides are saying. I said this before when I reviewed that beef, Candace versus Megan Kelly. Yeah.
Not calls for. Well, I mean, there have been some calls for, but not serious efforts to violate in a very direct way the First Amendment rights. But we believe in a culture of free speech as well. I've criticized efforts to, broadly get fired.
People cannot be
Or
hypocritical.
person or whatever. People who make
certain
maybe
people on the right
political statements or jokes or things.
It seems that certain people on the right are on the hypocritical time now. They want people to be black. Certain people, the Harvard students that signed that letter. Certain people on the right. It seems that they want certain the people that blindly support Hamas to be eternally blacklisted are on that hypocritical time. That's what it seems like. That's the case.
Not calls for. Well, I mean, there have been some calls for, but not serious efforts to.
Yeah, bro. It's wild, bro. The permanent preclusion, bro. That's even though a lot of far leftists they support permanent preclusion of people that they disagree with politically, albeit a plenitude of leftists support that BS. It doesn't mean that people on the right should do that the same BS that people on the left do. It's hypocritical.
Not calls for. Well, I mean, there have been some calls for, but not serious efforts.
Don't be like the far leftists. Don't be like the wokies on the left.
On October 7th.
Yeah, there have been too many in the American context. There have been too many, I think, calls for blacklisting and not calls for. Well, I mean, there have been some calls for, but not serious efforts to violate in a very direct way the First Amendment rights. But we believe in a culture of free speech as well. I've criticized efforts to, broadly necessarily get fired or expelled or unpersoned or whatever. People who make maybe regrettable, maybe not, political statements or jokes or things when they're young, all that kind of stuff. So in that same vein, I really think we ought to be a lot more careful, and people should not have such a knee-jerk
emotional.
I'm gonna stop you. Right now we're doing there's a lot going on with donors to universities are rescinding or threatening that they're going to rescind donations to universities over perception. It's happening in a lot of other places too. Penn State, I think. Some maybe Columbia, a couple other places. And look, again, no one is obligated to donate to any cause that they don't. Probably what I would say to a lot of these wealthy philanthropists is is this the first time you're realizing that the institution or the students there have values you don't agree with or don't align with? It's just now.
It's not about that. I think it's about sending a very strong message that certain kind of speech is not going to be tolerated, and I do think there's a power differential here. I wouldn't advise if I had a child or was mentoring a young person that they want to shut down debate on their campus. I wouldn't advise it, but I also don't think a kid having an opinion about a speaker is as significant or powerful as a multi-million-dollar donor to the university trying to coerce what the university does by withdrawing its donations. It's their right, but what should be more concerning for the public interest? One other example that we haven't raised yet is a professor at Berkeley, a University of California, which is supposed to be this progressive bastion, just was allowed to write an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal saying, "Don't hire my anti-Semitic law student."
Crazy.
That is
whack.
Trash. Yeah, but who is getting the right to
Yes,
write
the
these
right,
articles
but
in the Wall Street Journal? This was an issue
but
at a campus level.
people have the right
It does seem
to say,
that
to criticize that
allow these huge and powerful forums to make their
decision.
speech known and let their voices be heard. While at the same time saying, "Oh, I'm a small boy. I'm the victim in this scenario." I have yet to see any pro-Palestinian law professors or anybody else get these same opportunities, and I'm not seeing pro-Palestinian mega donors saying we're going to bring Harvard to its knees by withdrawing our $1 million corporation. Or any banks. Remember what happened to Kanye West, who was anti-Semitic, to be clear, but JP Morgan making the choice to terminate that banking relationship, but not Epstein's banking relationship.
I've seen pro-Palestinian commentary make its way. You brought up my colleague Emma Camp. I mean, she was speaking about not specifically the Israel-Palestine issue. The campuses are maybe not respectful enough or platforming enough for your viewpoint, explicitly left opinion, but they are hotbeds of generally liberal and progressive places, right? Conservative students are outnumbered wildly at elite campuses. The campuses give 99.9% of their donations to the Democratic Party. The faculty do. Well, let's not overemphasize.
It's a meritocracy. Excuse me, the conservatives need to just be getting better test scores, and then maybe there would be more than 100.
Fortunately, the test scores are not the only things that get taken into consideration.
Facts, Rob.
I think there are a few other factors there.
Yeah.
We'll leave it there. More rising right after this.
Yeah, let me know what y'all think, man. Yeah, it's